This is Dave Hedrick. We're back for installment number 3 in Roger Smith, My Bluegrass Journey. Here on the 28th of November 2012. Roger has not moved out of the chair that we were sitting in now in the last, what, 2 months? No, you've been up since then. What we're going to talk about today is the world of Roger Smith and 5-string bluegrass banjo. I, in my opinion, consider Roger to be one of the true pioneers in Earl Scruggs style bluegrass banjo playing, and because he's an age contemporary to Earl, we're going to spend a few minutes and talk about how Roger got first introduced to the banjo, the 5-string banjo, and who some of his early influences were. And then he's going to grab this pyramid TB2 and put it through its paces. So, in the very beginning, Roger, okay, probably what, in North Carolina or Virginia, you first started to get exposed to bluegrass banjo?
Yes, North Carolina. Not too, well, about 10 miles out of Mount Airy, and I was raised on a 126-acre farm about 10-12 miles outside of Mount Airy, North Carolina, where they had the radio station WPAQ.
Okay.
And the Murphy brothers came into WPAQ, and they lived at Mount Airy for some time, and what they would do, they'd play shows and advertise their shows over the radio. And
were they playing morning shows, afternoon shows?
Noon shows.
Noon shows.
Yeah. Dinner time. And I would listen to them, and they...
Now, what age were you at the time?
I was about 21 or 2.
Okay, so that'd be 1946, 1947 time frame.
Yes, probably.
So you were born in 26?
It'd been
maybe
a little later
than that. Okay, 1949, 50, 51.
I started playing with a group down there out of WPAQ myself in either 52 or 53.
Now, were you playing any banjo in the mid-1940s? Or did you start after your time because of the tuberculosis?
I was playing some two-fingered.
Two fingers? All right.
Yeah.
Now, who was teaching, or how did you pick up on learning two-finger style?
Playing dances.
Okay.
Playing dances with someone else that played the banjo, and I was playing the fiddle.
All right.
And
does a name come to mind of
who the banjo picker
who those
was?
Banjo pickers were down in that area?
Yeah, except he thumb-cocked it, clawhammer.
Right.
I'd been Buster Krause.
All right.
He died, I don't know, quite a few years ago. But we would play square dances, just the banjo and the fiddle. And my brother, he played some banjo too. It's two-finger though.
Mm-hmm.
But when, and I didn't care for the sound that you get out of a banjo. Some people could play smooth clawhammer, but most of it was kind of rough.
When do you remember hearing the first three-finger style, and where was the first influence that you would have heard from a three-finger style that you actually liked to hear?
Well, that would have been from a record that Bill Monroe cut, and Earl.
So Earl was that first influence
Right,
that you
right.
would have heard
Yeah,
then.
right.
Now, when you heard it, did you want to start to attempt to duplicate what you heard on the record?
Yes,
Okay.
I sure did, but you talking about learning to play the banjo. Today, I would try to roll. Couldn't roll,
Okay.
but I was trying to.
Yeah.
And I'd almost get to the point to where that I could roll, but I just couldn't quite make it, and I'd put it in the case, I'd latch it, and I'd pick it up, and I'd throw it under the bed. Mad.
Yeah, there you go.
And I did that for several days.
Okay.
But I finally...
So you could hear it in your head, but you couldn't get your fingers to produce the sound that you were hearing.
Right. If there had been anyone to talk to, but bands were few and far between.
Right.
It took a long time to learn to play back when I was trying to.
Now, how did Happy Smith and Larry Richardson come into your life, and some of the influence that Larry may have had in your early banjo playing?
The Murphy brothers finally moved out of Mount Airy, and Larry and Happy formed a band and started playing at PAQ, and they had well, the band was Happy and Larry both played banjos.
Okay.
Happy played the clawhammer style. Larry, the three picks.
Right.
He had played with Bill before this time.
So I think Larry, according to some chronologies out there, had been playing with Monroe in probably 1950, 1951.
Yes, he and Bob Osborne.
Right.
They played
Yes.
there at Bean Blossom. I believe it was in 50, maybe 52, 51 or 2.
So Bobby would have been playing some banjo with Bill before Sonny had started in 52 or 53.
Now that I don't know.
Yeah.
I never did hear anybody say anything about Bobby playing banjo with Bill.
Okay.
Bobby and Larry.
We're playing together.
So
Okay.
Larry would have been picking banjo. And
Okay. Bobby playing mandolin.
Bobby playing mandolin.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So as you were working through trying to duplicate what you were hearing off the Bill Monroe records, were you progressing, and how slow was, as you mentioned in the beginning, but then were you able to start to acquire the approach to creating rolls that satisfied your ear to what you were hearing on the records?
by 1955, when I came to Bean Blossom, I had climbed up to where that I could play banjo well enough until I could play with a group.
Right.
The banjo by itself.
Right. What did you
what
hear?
I was doing, I was carrying fiddle and banjo.
Right.
And guitar.
Okay.
And mandolin.
Right.
So
with mandolin, fiddle, and guitar tuned similarly, did you find that the open tuning of a banjo caused you to literally change your whole thinking or your whole approach because of banjo being so much different than the tuning of the other three instruments?
I probably would not have taken the time to learn the banjo if I hadn't heard the three-fingered style picking, because that really changed the banjo completely.
Right.
And I went to work on both instruments.
Right.
I was still working on the fiddle as well as the banjo.
And playing music is what you were doing full time.
I could play guitar because I learned to play the guitar from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned to play a little mandolin from a mandolin that my brother bought from Sears and Roebuck. It was a plug, but we played it.
Right. Now, you've told me the story of how you evolved to playing the starting lick on Foggy Mountain Breakdown differently when you were first learning, and then tell us a quick story about how you started to drop the thumb down to the second string, and about what year you made that transition over to the more classic way of the Foggy Mountain Breakdown starting lick.
Well, when I came to Indiana, I was picking. Well, you want me to show you?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
This will help people see where some of the pioneers that first started and how they started to evolve to change some of their picking
I
style.
started it out with my first finger.
Double picking with the first finger.
Well, I done it like this when I came in 55.
Okay.
And then, coming back from, we played, in 55 when I played at Bean Blossom, we played a television show, radio show at WIBC at 12 noon to 12:30, I believe it was. And coming back to Nashville, I accidentally hit this string here. And then I added that. And then I could tell that didn't sound exactly like what the other banjo pickers were doing. So
Right.
little Osby Smith and myself went to Dayton and played over there at a club with Bobby and Sonny Osborne.
1955.
That'd have been 56,
56. Okay.
And I asked Sonny, I said, how do you start Foggy Mountain Breakdown? Or Bluegrass Breakdown, because they're both
Right.
the same way. So he showed me, and he dropped the thumb down and picked that second string the second time.
Yes.
And boy, that smoothed that thing out just. And I couldn't do it and play. And to do that, I had to go.
So you had to relearn.
I had to relearn.
Change the computer in your head to relearn a habit that you had grown into doing it the other way.
Now, I'll for the people, I'll put this on like I came to Indiana with.
Right.
And then I'll do it like I do it today.
Sure.
Then I went to this. Then I went to this.
And I can promise the people that in 1961, when I started taking banjo lessons, Roger taught it to me just that way.
Yeah.
Now, as you started to develop that picking style and you started playing more banjo, and you moved into the 1960s, most of us as banjo players saw some of the chromatic or melodic influences coming into Bill Monroe's world with Bill Keith, and then later individuals like Bob Black and others. How did you reconcile, as you were listening to that approach, that you decided that, gee, I'm not going to chase that, I'm going to stay true to the Scruggs Monroe style picking that you had been introduced to back in the early 50s through all of the 1950s?
Well, I like to play hard driving bluegrass on the banjo. I like to play country, bluegrass on the fiddle. The melodic, I didn't want to change the style of banjo that I play, and I never will. I don't see any reason to change it. I can play anything that I want to play.
Right.
Now, you notice I said that I want to play.
Right.
So, if there's a tune that I want to learn, all I do is sit down and learn how to play it.
Right.
Are
there tunes presently that you would sit and spend time? Is there a banjo player that comes to mind today that, as you listen to CDs, that you appreciate their style of playing that relates very much to what you like about bluegrass banjo playing?
Yes, Steve Dillon.
Steve Dilling, right?
I like his banjo picking.
Yeah, it's when he's playing hardcore, it's great stuff.
Yes, it is. But he changes his banjo picking, whereas I don't.
Yeah, he's very adaptable.
But when you listen to him play backup banjo and play, when he's playing backup banjo, he's playing the melody. You can hear the words in his backup stuff.
Right.
That's what I like about that.
Right. Share some of your thoughts on, in banjo backup, where it may be that less is better than too much.
Oh, Lord. Well, the only way that that I would describe that is if you have a singer that is singing, he is the leader of what's going on, and you don't want to get above him with nothing, because his voice should be first and the music should come in second.
I think you and I both see, because we both go to Bean Blossom, and you'll see different groups come up on stage where a technically good banjo player is not playing banjo in a group because they play so much that's not part of a group setting. That's always the part that I've enjoyed about J.D. Crowe. Crowe understands that he's part of a group. His role is to be a support mechanism to the overall group. Yet there's younger banjo players today that are just starting to learn, in my opinion, that less is more.
Right. Well, the thing about it is, though, when you listen to a CD today, if you can hear the mandolin, you can hear the banjo, the bass, the guitar, but the singing is up here a couple of notches above them. You need to be able to, if you wanted to pick out the words to the number of the song that they're doing, that you can do that over the music.
Right.
A lot of music is put out where it overrides the singer.
Yes.
I'm talking about country.
Right.
And they blast with those electric guitars and drums, and I'll tell you, sometimes it's hard to even imagine trying to pick out the words to what they're saying.
Right. It becomes very influenced by what rock music was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, and it's bled over into that total sound approach. It's not very, the balance is that the singing doesn't become the dominant factor. It's just a blast of noise that's truly coming at you.
Right.
As you spent time playing both fiddle and banjo with Bill Monroe, did Bill influence the way you approached the banjo by talking to you about certain passages, or was he very open and very accommodating to the way you went about playing the banjo by making suggestions on the overall arrangement of the music itself?
When I joined Bill's group, in our talking, I said to him that, I said, Bill, if there's anything that you can show me or tell me that will help my fiddle playing or banjo picking, I would appreciate it. And he said, there's one note in wheelhouse. It's an F note.
Okay.
He said, I'd like to hear you get.
Can you demonstrate that thought?
With a fiddle?
Oh, if it's the fiddle influence, we'll get to that in the next CD.
Yeah.
How would that note translate itself into the banjo portion?
Well,
Right. It's G to F.
Yeah.
G to F, G to F. But he was hearing certain notes.
It's in the fiddle work. When we get the fiddle, I'll show you.
But Bill would hear certain notes that he wanted to.
No, he never did say play this way, play this that way. And that's the only thing that he ever told me at all, and that was about a note in the fiddle work.
Oh, okay, it was in the fiddle world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no. If I played banjo, of course it didn't make any difference who was playing fiddle. I played banjo with Bill when Bobby Hicks was with him.
Right.
I've played banjo with Bill when Williams was with him.
Benny
Williams.
Right. Roger, today you're still giving lessons. How many people are you giving banjo lessons to presently?
Yes, when I retired from the trucking business, I was giving lessons throughout my trucking years too, but I got into it kind of heavy after I retired. That'd have been in '85.
Okay.
And I was giving 30 lessons a week.
Is that right?
Sure. Now I only give maybe 5, 6. 30 lessons a week will work you pretty doggone good.
Yeah, that's not retiring. That's going to another job.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I was clearing $600 a week at it. So
wow.
That's fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Stay at home and not...
right, have to travel and
right.
No expenses tied into it.
But I was teaching guitar, mandolin, and banjo and fiddle.
Right. Now, who was and how did you start giving banjo lessons? I've already mentioned that in '61 or '62 you started with me, but you were giving some other people some lessons, I think, prior to that,
yeah.
In probably late '50s then?
Yeah, I was averaging probably maybe 11 lessons a week there.
Okay.
But
if you would, for us, explain your approach to starting a person with some of the basic roles. And it may very well be in this discussion that it hasn't changed significantly the way you approach slowing down roles and getting people to work on roles and role patterns as the first step in getting started playing the bluegrass banjo.
Well, teaching the banjo, the first role that I start them on is an 8-note roll.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I start them on with the 8-note roll is you drop your thumb down to get that to the second string. Now, if you start someone out rolling 1, 2, 3, you pick with the thumb every time you pick with your fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you get in the habit of doing that, and then you don't like, in other words, you want to keep that going.
Yeah.
You don't want to stop it.
It becomes fifth string dominated.
But the other rolls, you do have to change it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the reason that that I start them out that way. But let me say this to the people now that want to learn to play the banjo. If you can find someone that knows how to play a banjo and can teach it, you really need to go to them, because it's just kind of hard to do by yourself. And the thing about it is, if you go get you a good teacher, you'll cut your time in half learning to play the banjo. And the thing about it is, after you learn how to play the banjo, if you want to teach somebody else, you can get your money back by charging them what you paid to learn it to start with.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I think one of the fascinating parts for your legacy of teaching banjo is that there are people that you've taught to play the banjo who have taught other people to play the banjo, who have taught other people to play the banjo. And when in the central Indiana, when we get together and we're talking among banjo players, there's some influence that Roger Smith has had going all the way back to people like myself or Roger Bannister and others that have taught other people who have gone on to teach other people.
You tell all them that I want my cut out of that.
Well, we'll make sure that, well, it's going to get mentioned here. Let's see, we'll give them your address here at the end so that they can send their
That's okay.
annuity checks.
That's okay. I don't need.
Yeah. If you would run through 2 or 3 of those roll patterns that you're talking about.
I'll just play a tune.
Okay, very good.
This is one that I put together myself called Milton Rag. Sweet. That is so much like, okay, your banjo playing
whether it was when you were, 35 years old and giving lessons, or giving lessons now at 85, 86?
86.
86. That's
Yeah,
that's what
God's
it's
been good to me. He really has.
And we're fortunate to have the opportunity.
But now
to
I'm
know that
beginning to get arthritis
Oh, yeah.
quite, and that's gonna.
Well, but that's the reason you spend most of your time on fiddle. There you
well,
go.
I'm gonna get to where I can't play that too bit.
Yeah.
Because what happens, the arthritis gets in the knuckles and causes them to lock up,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and you got a lot of moving.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a list of some of the banjo players that are kind of contemporary to you. If you don't mind, let me read a name and just give me some impressions of their banjo playing as you may have heard it in context with Bill Monroe. Obviously, we've talked about Earl Scruggs and the major influence there. Don Reno spent a little bit of time with Bill, but you got to know Don very well and Red, both as they had come to Bean Blossom to play shows. What were some of your impressions of Don Reno as he become his own stylist on the banjo?
One of the finest gentlemen you'd ever want to meet. And I don't know if most of the people probably don't even know that he was a fine fiddle player, mandolin picker,
Flat top guitar player. Yeah.
tenor guitar,
Mm-hmm.
bass. He could play anything and play it well.
How about Rudy Lyle? Were you around Rudy much?
Just a little, not too much. He's from Mount Airy too.
Is he really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I didn't know Rudy until he started working for Bill.
Right.
But
Pretty straight driving style
I met him
banjo.
at Bean Blossom.
Did you? What year would you recall?
Well, that's when Rudy and Benny Martin, they played some together, and
Mhm.
they came to Bean Blossom on a weekend and put on a show up there.
Joe Drumright, were you around Joe at all?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I don't remember ever meeting him.
How about Noah Crace?
I knew him well.
Yeah, because of the Indiana-Ohio connection.
Yes, I played different places, we'd play festivals together.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Moon, Mullins, and
right.
Joe, and of course, trying to think what Joe played. When this might have been before Joe even started playing banjo.
Yep, probably was.
But that's how I got acquainted with Noel Craze.
Right.
And I picked some here at Bean Blossom with him too.
Yes.
Not too many years ago, they got the Bluegrass Boys up there, and
Yes.
he was the banjo picker.
Yeah, absolutely. How about Jim Smoke? I think Jim was from Louisiana. Probably didn't spend much time with Bill, I
know
don't think so.
Jim.
Okay.
I never met him.
Okay. Obviously, extensive time that you got to know Joe Stewart.
Yes, well, after I left Bill, he'd call me to meet him someplace and play fiddle or banjo, either
Mhm.
one. And Joe would be playing fiddle, and I knew Joe
Yeah.
Stewart.
Joe was probably I always considered him to be the greatest utility player. He wasn't necessarily outstanding on any one particular instrument, but Monroe could always rely on him because he was always available and willing to do just whatever it took.
I thought he was a better guitar picker than anything else on the instruments that he played.
Right.
But he played all of them. He played fiddle, banjo,
Through the years, did you get to know Tony Ellis?
quite well. I went to Nashville and took another guy with me, and we went on a tour with Bill. We caught Bill at the Opry, and when he came out on the porch there at the Ryman, there's, well, I don't know, 8 to 10 steps there that you had to come down.
Right.
He looked down and saw that we were there, and he said, "Boy, I sure would have," said, "I sure wish I had you here a week sooner." And he came on down to where we were standing, and I said, "Why?" And he said, "I'd like to have you on a recording that I just got through making." And I said, "Who helped you?" He said, "Dale Potter and Carl Butler," and I thought to myself, you didn't need me, you had Dale Potter. That Dale Potter was a fine fiddle player.
Yeah, yeah. We'll touch on Dale in this next video when we talk about fiddle playing and influences from a fiddle playing standpoint.
Yeah, he was a good guy too.
Lonnie Hoppers, I recently reconnected you and Lonnie back together.
Right.
Through the, I received an email response because of being a member of the Banjo Hangout.
Yeah.
And I think you and Lonnie had a chance to have a phone conversation
Yeah.
after how many years?
Well, first time I met Lonnie was at the festival that James Monroe was having at Rosine, Kentucky.
Right.
And we got together at the old barn there at Rosine and did some playing together. I played fiddle, he played banjo, and Vernon McQueen played guitar.
Right.
Somebody else joined in, I forget, well, I think it was, it doesn't matter.
I think Lonnie was probably the banjo player that was playing with Monroe right before Bill Keith was asked to join. You know,
Could have been.
yeah, because I think the story goes that Bill wasn't necessarily going to be the banjo player of record at that point in time, and he got introduced into it, and Del McCurry went to guitar instead of playing the banjo.
Yeah, that was created by Kenny Baker.
Is that right?
Yeah, Kenny went to Bill and said, you need to listen to Brad Keith play banjo.
Right, yeah.
And Dale had an appointment to try out for banjo with Bill.
Okay.
And what Bill did, evidently, he needed a guitar player too, so
Right.
he had, I guess, asked Dale if he'd go on guitar, and of course Dale didn't care.
Dale's guitar playing's done and singing's done real well for him over his career.
I played with Bill over in the western part of Indiana,
Right.
with Brad Keith and Dale when they were with Bill and Bessie.
Great, great.
So
Tell you what, let's do, Roger. What we're going to do is we're about complete with this particular segment. Choose a song, okay, and let's go out with you playing whatever you would like to choose, and we'll let the video and your banjo playing do the talking.
okay.
Thanks, Roger. Great.
Yes, sir.